We are back for another Acceptable Casualties battle report. Today we have 1,500 points of dust up. We're going to be having the Shock Rifle Battalion taking on the blocking force for the Germans with a Sperrverband. Is that what they're called then?
Yeah.
Sperrverband. So yeah, I'll be back in a second to go over the lists and then deployment. So here's my 1,500 points of Fearless Trained Shock Rifle Battalion. Down here we have our 1IC, 2IC, and Battalion Commissar. Just above them, we have two pretty much identical shock rifle companies. They have 12 bases with Commissar. Added on to them, we have sappers. There's going to be 2 sappers on this one, 3 on that one, 2 anti-tank rifles, and 1 flamethrower base thrown into each of those. Over here, we have 4 Ziz 3 guns. In the back, we have 3 ISU 152s, and we have an IL-2 with limited air support. So altogether, 1,500 points. Be back in a second to go over Vin's Sperrverband. So here we have 1,500 points of Vin's Sperrverband. I'm going to get that right. At some point in this game, I'm going to say it right. So up here, we have the 1IC and 2IC. We have 1 platoon of, are these the Pioneers?
Yeah, this will be Pioneer. This will be
just your regular standard infantry with, you have a Shrek team attached to them?
Yeah.
Okay. Over here, we have 4 Pack 40s. We have 5 Panzer IVs and 5 Stugs. The tanks are all going to be rated as Confident Veteran, and the infantry and the Pack 40s as well, right, Vin, are Reluctant Vet unless they're facing off against tanks. Then they go up to, is it Fearless?
Yeah, Fearless.
Then they go up to Fearless. So that's what we're looking at, 1,500 points for the blocking force. Be back in a second to go over deployment and get this game underway. So here we are for our deployment for Dust Up. I'll go over the Soviets first and then the Germans. Down here, we'll do the objectives first actually. We have both objectives over here down in this corner for the Soviet deployment. And then over on this side, we have an objective here and another objective set up over there. I ended up winning the roll-off, so I elected to attack first, hopefully to get my reserves on the table first before Vin. I ended up setting up my first shock rifle company over here along the river, maybe use that to my advantage when Vin's tanks come in later, and they're going to be supported by the Ziz guns back in the forest. Over here on Vin's table edge, he went with, is this the Pioneers or just the regular rifle MG teams?
Here's regular rifle MGs.
Okay, so this is the regular rifle MG teams down here in the forest. Vin's trying to get a little bit of cover from that plane if it ends up coming in. And then up front, he decided to string out his Pack 40s, just line it up a gun line, waiting for my tanks to come in. Maybe turn 3 if deployment, if my reserve rolls end up working out pretty well for me. So that's how we're looking right now. Be prepared. There's not going to be a lot of movement or shooting probably for the first 3 turns until reserves start coming in. Both of these defenses are pretty static right now, but we will have the flame flying around a little bit. So be back in a second for top of turn 1 for the Soviets. So we are back for top of turn 1 for the Soviets. In our movement, obviously we didn't move at all. We ended up getting the Ziz guns dug in, gone on the ground. They're not doing anything. And these guys, we failed our dig and roll. They're just gone on the ground. For our reserves, well, it's no reserves, just a plain roll. We did get the plane in. 3 guys ended up coming in. We got 3 planes. We ended up trying to go for the pack guns. We ended up ranging in with our 4-up, and then we got 3 hits. Vin ended up making 2 of his saves, but he failed 1. So we were able to pull off 1 of the Pack 40s over there. They are pinned, and they are reluctant, so hopefully they stay pinned for a very long time. So we'll be back in a second for bottom of turn 1 for the Germans. So we are back for bottom of turn 1 for the Germans. You guys aren't really going to be able to experience the fastest game in history, but for me and Vin, that turn took about all of 10 seconds. So Vin was able to unpin the Pack 40s, and then he was able to dig in and go to ground. And then Vin was also able to dig in and go to ground back here with his infantry. That is all that he's doing in the bottom of turn 1. I'll be back in a second for the top of turn 2 for the Soviets, and it'll just be using the plane. So we are back for top of turn 2 for the Soviets. Nobody over here moved. We were able to dig in the shock rifles over here. We did get our plane to come in. 1 plane flew in. We decided to go for the 1 Pack 40 sitting out in the middle over there. He was dug in, gone to ground, all that jazz. We ended up ranging in, and then we auto ranged in because Vin was outside of cover, and then we had 2 successful rolls to hit because we had to re-roll. Vin failed his infantry save, and then I ended up passing my firepower test, so we peeled off another pack 40. So that's all that happened here for the top of turn 2. We'll be back in a second for the Germans' bottom 2. So we are back for the bottom of turn 2. That took 5 seconds. Vin failed to unpin the pack 40s right here. So we'll be back in a second for top of turn 3 for the Soviets, and hopefully we can get our reserves come on the table so we can have a little bit more action for this game. So we'll be back in a flash. So we are back for the top of turn 3 for the Soviets. This turn we failed our reserve roll, unfortunately, so we're going to lose the initiative on that. Down here, we did bring in the plane, one plane once again, but we failed to range in on the pack 40s inside the woods, so that was a missed opportunity there as well. So we'll be back in a second for bottom of turn 3 for the Germans. If Finn gets a reserve roll in here, he's probably going to end up taking the initiative of this game and being able to strike first, so we'll see how things go. So we are back for the bottom of turn 3 for the Germans, and as you can see, Vin brought in some Stugs. So they came in off this table edge here, and Vin ended up getting everybody on the river right there. He fired 5 cannon shots, 5 machine gun shots down into the Ziz guns. I was able to make all my saves except for one, and Vin was able to pluck out one with a firepower check down there. So that's what we're looking at right now for bottom of turn 3. We'll be back in a second for top 4 Soviets. Hopefully we can get some tanks in here and make this game a little more interesting. So we are back for top of turn 4 for the Soviets. We did not have our plane come in this time, and I ended up failing the roll over there. But if you swing on down here, I was able to get the ISU 152s in on that table edge in movement.
It went really bad.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. So we came up here. We tried to get in a position to assault the pack 40s, and we ended up bogging once. And then we decided to assault as well, and we bogged again. So that nothing happened over here. Let's go back to this side of the table. So back up over here, we ended up taking our Ziz guns. We were in range to do volley fire, so we fired our 6 shots with rerolls over here at these Stugs. We were able to blow one up, bail out another. So a pretty decent turn of shooting. We stayed dug in on the ground over there, just waiting for the Stug assault to go off. So we're back in a second for the bottom of turn 4. Panzers come in right now. This could get pretty ugly, so we'll be back in a flash. We are back for the bottom of turn 4 for the Germans, and the dice keep coming up big for Vin. Vin was able to get the Panzer IVs to come on the table over here. So in the movement phase, they moved up onto the hill. The Stugs swung around to get better positions along the river, and Vin was able to cross with the 1 Stug. We swing back all the way over onto this side. Vin had to move the 1 pack 40 to get a clear shot on those guys. And he stayed dug in and turned the other one. So in the shooting phase, Vin fired with the 2 pack 40s here and missed everything somehow. So that was pretty awesome. Going back over to here, the Stugs fired a bunch of shots into the Ziz guns. Vin was able to kill 2 of them because I failed some saves. He ended up digging me out, and I passed my motivation to stay on the table. Back here, the Panzer IVs fired a bunch of shots down there. They missed everything on the Ziz guns, and then 2 of them fired onto the infantry blob, and they missed as well. So that's everything that happened here for the bottom of turn 4 for the Germans. We'll be back in a second for top 5 for the Soviets, and hopefully we can get some things rolling. So we are back for the top of turn 5 for the Soviets. We automatically got our other platoon of shock rifles to come in over here on the table. Everybody else pretty much stayed put. I tried to get both of these guys unbogged. Unfortunately, that did not work for me, so they both stayed bogged, and I swung the one I see around over here. There used to be pack 40s there. I ended up rolling 2 hits right off the bat, and since they are bunker buster guns, I was able to dig out both of those pack 40s right there. And Vin failed his motivation since his guys are reluctant, so that whole platoon got pulled off the table, kind of opening up the alleyway down here to get to these 2 objectives. Hopefully I can capitalize on that. Back over here. We ended up staying on the ground, dug in with the infantry platoon here, and the Ziz guns, we fired our 2 shots of volley fire, and we were able to get a bail on one of them over here. So that's what we're looking at here for the shooting phase. The plane failed to come in once again. We're back for the bottom of turn 6. See what Vin's going to do to answer the call. So we are back for bottom of turn 5 for the Germans. Vin automatically had the Pioneer squad come in over here. In the movement phase, Vin decided to swing the Panzer IVs and the Pioneers to try to get a little more into the middle of the table, help support that flank over there. The Stugs kind of just moved up and got into position and possibly make an assault over there, and the infantry platoon down here stayed put. In the shooting phase, Vin fired 3 of the Panzer IVs, had a shot over there on the commander for the ISU 152s. He had 1 hit. I ended up getting a 3 on the. I ended up getting 3 on the side armor save. I went up to an 8, so that gave me an 11. So Vin failed his firepower, so I was okay over there. Back on this side, Vin fired this Stug into the Ziz gun with his cannons. I ended up making 1 save for the commander, and then I failed the other save for the Ziz gun, but Vin failed the firepower test, so they were able to stay dug in over there, which is kind of nice. Then down here, Vin fired a bunch of shots in an infantry platoon, and I ended up getting my save there. He put himself into position to assault here. Vin decided to opt out of the assault because the Ziz gun was within 8 inches, so I would have been able to get defensive fire for that assault, and Vin figured he'd wait another turn or two to see if he can get that Ziz gun out of the equation before he ended up making that assault. Nobody did any stormtrooper moves. We'll be back in a second for top of turn 6 for the Soviets. Let's see what happens. So we are back for, this is top 6, right? Yeah, top turn 6 for the Soviets. We were able to get our plane in down here. We got 2 planes on the old plane die. On the movement phase, like I said, plane came in here. Everybody stayed put up over there, back over here. We took our infantry blob and we ended up moving them at the double to get them positioned to contest the next turn. We swung our commander for the ISU 152s over there. He's alone because once again I failed to unbog my tanks over there, so they're just sitting there parked. Hopefully they can catch up next turn. In the shooting phase, we just had 3 machine gun shots going down here, and we ended up missing all of those. The plane, we were able to get 3 of them. We got 2 hits. We used our rocket, so Vin ended up getting 1 save, and then he failed another one, but I failed my firepower, so I was just able to get a bail. Up over here, we decided to stay gun on the ground and dug in with the infantry. With our Ziz gun and volley fire, we fired a couple more shots than there. We were able to blow up another Stug. So right now, there are 1 bailed, 2 left on the table. Look like they're going to have a tough time taking that objective, but, as this game goes on, anything can happen. So we'll be back in a second for bottom of turn 6 for the Germans, and then let's see if those Panzers can answer the call over there on that side of the table. So we are back for bottom of turn 6 for the Germans. In the movement phase, Vin started moving these Pioneers up a little bit closer over there. The Panzers he moved as well, and this is with the Stormtrooper move. Vin pulled half of his platoon out over here to contest that objective over there because the ISU 152 is within range. Over on this side, we'll start over here, I guess. Vin moved all the Stugs into position, fired a couple shots. They were able to take out the Ziz gun. I passed my motivation to keep those guys on the table. Then Vin also fired machine gun shots into here. So when the assault went off, in defensive fire with the anti-tank rifles, I had 3 hits. Vin rolled a 1, and a 2, but thankfully he had the shrews in on there. So we got to re-roll, and then he rolled like a 5 and 2 6s or something like that, so they're able to get in. But once they got in, Vin was able to kill 3 bases in close combat, but then when I countercharged, I had sappers and then just a whole bunch of guys being able to plug up that little fort right there. And I was able to take Vin out in 2 rounds of combat and blow up 3 of his tanks. So that Stug platoon is completely wiped out. Down over here in the shooting phase, Vin was able to fire off 3 of the Panzers into the ISUs, the 152s over there. And you didn't get any hits, did you?
No.
Yeah, no hits with that. And then with some...
Oh, no, I did.
Did I make a save?
Yeah.
Okay. And then down here with the rifle MGs, Vin was able to get a couple of hits over there. There's 2 hits on that infantry blob. He's able to kill 1 guy, failed to save. So that's what we're looking at for bottom of turn 6. We're going to be back at top of turn 7. This might turn into a stalemate, man. I don't know. This one's going to be pretty rough. So we'll be back in a second for top of turn 7 for the Soviets. So we are back for top of turn 7. Movement phase, everybody stays still over here. I failed to unpin. I figured not use the commissar. No point in killing anybody just yet. I did make my last man standing back there for the 1 command base. Moving over here, we decided to swing our infantry and get them in position to possibly assault next turn for Vin's infantry that's guarding that objective. We were able to unbog one of the tanks over there, and we got them as close as we could to get in the coherency with the other tank that's right there. In the shooting phase, we fired a bunch of machine gun shots from the tanks and the rifle teams down here, and we were able to kill, what, 2 guys from down here, right, Vin?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're not dug in or anything, and we were able to pin them down. We were able to get the plane in, and we rolled 3 1s. So that sucked.
That was wonderful.
Yeah, that was great. We decided, like I said, not to do anything for assaults. We're going to kind of just wait and see how things play out, setting our stuff up for next turn. So we'll be back in a second for bottom of turn 7 for the Germans. So we are back here for bottom of turn 7. In the movement phase, Vin took those pioneers, pushed them up into the woods over here. This is them going at the double with a stormtrooper move. I think trying to get them positioned to get a possible assault over there if shit hits the fan these next couple turns. Back over here, Vin moved his Panzer IVs up around over there. Only 2 of them were able to get a shot within that 6 inches through the woods, and then this guy over here was able to hit machine guns. Vin still broke apart that platoon over here, and this is with the stormtrooper move, trying to get him up a little bit closer to the tank to get some supporting fire if I decide to go for assaults. In the shooting phase, Vin was able to kill 1 guy here with rifle MG fire from this platoon down here. And over here, Vin fired 2 cannon shots after the move in the side armor there. He hit 1, and then I made my save. So we were kind of lucky on that one. And then this tank back here, he had machine gun shots going in over there, and Vin was able to hit 1, and I made the save to save him. So I lucked out on that side over there. So this is what we're looking at the bottom of turn 7. I think it's all going to come down to what happens on this side of the table over here, I think. So we'll be back in a second for top of turn 8 Soviets. So we are back for the top of turn 8 for the Soviets. Once again, we failed to unpin over there. We moved our last man standing over there, past the roll, got him a little bit closer to the 1 IC, just in case if I needed to keep that platoon on the table later in the game. Down over here, we moved our ISU 152s up over here to get close to the objective and get those guys within coherency. The bogged out guy, once again, did not get back in his tank. If you're noticing a bunch of dead infantrymen over here, that's because we positioned ourselves to get into an assault with the panzers over here. We had the flamethrower, so we were able to hit him, and then because of defensive fire, because everybody was kind of looking through the woods to shoot, Vin wasn't able to fire that many shots, so I was able to get into close combat, and it was an absolute bloodbath. I think, what did I lose, Vin? Like 9 bases, and Vin lost 3 tanks and explosions, and then 1 guy bailed out. I ended up failing my motivation to stay in the fight, so I just ended up peeling back off. And then after combat, we both passed our motivations to stay on the table. So this is kind of what it looks like right now, going into the bottom of turn 8. Getting those panzers off is a pretty big deal, but we'll see if we can make it pay off. So we'll be back in a flash. Bottom turn 8 for Germans. So we are back for the bottom of turn 8 for the Germans. Shooting failed Vin here. So he was able to dig in these guys and just kind of wait to see how things played off on this side of the table over here. He took the 2 Panzer IVs and swung them up and around over there. And then over here, he positioned the rest of his platoon for an assault on the ISU 152s. In the shooting phase, Vin fired a bunch of machine gun shots down in the list platoon, and I think we have like 1 or 2 hits and made my saves.
Yeah.
Something like that. So that went all right. And then Vin assaulted the sapper and the commissar up over there, and he ended up killing both of them and pushing himself into there. I didn't counter assault with those guys because I thought it was pretty pointless at this point. Down here, Vin positioned his guys to get an assault off and get the Shrek and Faust shots off, and Vin rolled 2 2s, so I didn't get blown up, so that's pretty good. Then in the defensive fire, I was able to kill 2 guys, right? 2 guys, which forced Vin to take a motivation test for that platoon. And with the 5-up reluctant roll, they ended up going off the table. So Vin's looking at 3 out of his 5 platoons are off. It's the Stugs, 1 infantry platoon here, and the Pack 40s. Vin has the 1 IC and 2 IC left, so he's going to get 2 rolls. Vin, where do you want to do it?
Lucky spot right here.
All right, 5-ups, reluctant.
Wish me luck.
We're 1 at a time, man. Let's build some drama here. Oh, here it is. Oh.
Yes.
Oh, what?
Okay.
That's illegal. You can't do that. So we got victory for the Soviets. The Germans break off the table. That was a pretty good game, and that was fun. So I'll be back in a second to go over endgame recap and talk about how this went. So hold on 1 minute. So we are back for the end of game recap. I'm going to go over the Soviets first, and then we'll go over to Vin. So what I was thinking for my defense here, obviously, the way these two lists were set up, I figure I was just going to set up in that corner. I had the river kind of working. I'm surprised Vin didn't take that corner, but like I said, I set it up to defend along that whole river there and support it with the Ziz guns, knowing that for the first 3 turns, I mean, really just the distance, we weren't going to do anything at all as far as shooting. And I was really banking on just my plane coming in and doing some damage along that back line like he did against the Pac 40s, which really panned out. And then hoping to get my ISU 152s in there so I can get the initiative on the attack and really put pressure on those objectives first. The plane did its thing, taking out the Pac 40s down here. Excuse me, I got to scratch my arm. Not getting the ISU 152s in first, that kind of sucked because if that would have happened, I think I don't think I would have ended the game faster, but I think things could have. I don't think they would have went as long.
Yeah.
On this side of the table, but you had really good reserve rolls too. But yeah, so that was kind of my thought over there. Just hold the line with the Ziz guns and that blob of infantry over there. I was contemplating when we were doing alternating deployment for this mission to bring that blob up here and then just kind of run them all the way across the table and try to steal that objective early on in the game, but that was even a little too risky for me to try, so I decided not to deal with it. For this side of the table, when those ISU 152s came on, my plan was to use this forest right here and kind of just swing around it or drive through it and put some pressure on those Pac 40s. But when both of those guys bogged down on that first attempt to get in there and get an assault off, that just killed me. That's like, what, 3 turns, I think, of both of them just sitting there not doing anything. Yeah, so that kind of ruined the effectiveness of that unit. It might have been a blessing in disguise. Me and Vin were talking about it as well. Like, Vin would have had 3 defensive fire shots with those Pac 40. So it would have been a big risk on my part. But just how things ended up working out with them firing into there the next turn and digging those guys out of there and Vin failing that break test, it was like a blessing in disguise. It worked out pretty good. And then using that infantry blob to kind of get up here, I just wanted to put them here and just control this corridor just to put them in a position to counter assault and help out those ISU 152s later in the game. And they played out pretty well. I would say that infantry was definitely the MVP of the game for me. I mean, for what they were able to do as far as control the side of the table, keep those Panzer IVs at bay. A close second would have been the infantry blob over there on that side. I mean, holding off that assault of Stugs the way that they did was pretty awesome. But that's kind of what I was thinking. Hold the line over there, possibly get aggressive mid to late game, but that never really came to fruition. And then just being really aggressive with my reserves when they came in. The plane did a lot of work too, but unfortunately, outside of taking out those Pac 40s, they had a lot of opportunities to take out those Panzer IVs, but didn't work out too well in my favor. But Vin, I don't know, what were you thinking as far as how you had your setup initially and what you wanted to do with your reserves?
Well, we were talking earlier, and definitely I did have a huge derp moment, which I don't know what I was thinking to begin with. I had my Pioneers come in on the right side of the table.
Yeah.
Which Joe just pointed that out, and I was just like, that doesn't really make any sense. Why would I do that?
Yeah, having the Pioneers assault and infantry and Ziz gun platoon, you would have been better off having them back here and defending those objectives. Yeah, that was a missed opportunity, I think.
Yeah, and I don't know what I was thinking on that. That was a huge mistake. Not necessarily the reason I think I lost, but
no, it wasn't. But yeah, but it could have made a difference a little bit later in the game.
Yeah,
for you counter assaulting and doing all stuff like that.
The big failure of the day for me was definitely the Stugs.
Oh yeah, the thwarted Stug assault over here.
Yeah, that just went south instantly. Pretty much I took out your Ziz guns, which was huge. Like, that was but
it was at the cost of 2 Stugs. I think that shootout was 2 Stugs for the Ziz gun platoon. I think is what the trade-off was, because you only lost 3 in the assaults.
Yeah, it was bad. It definitely wasn't a good shootout. And then getting in there and actually finally seeing. So we played now 3 games since you've had Sappers.
Yeah, since I started putting them in. Yeah, Sappers this game were huge.
This is actually the first time I think we've actually seen
them in full action. Yeah.
Yeah, they are nasty.
Yeah, if you're a Soviet player, spend the $13 if you haven't already. Get a bunch of sappers. You have 5 of them. It's like 85 to 100 points in each one of your lists, and they make fighting tanks so much better for your infantry blobs. Totally worth the investment for points and money. Definitely do it.
Yeah, and also like another thing to just throw in there, it's like usually, which you guys have seen in our past videos, if it wasn't for sappers, like those Stogs probably would end up steamrolling at least half before getting taken
Oh
off the
yeah,
table.
yeah. It's yeah.
I mean, they probably still would have won, but like your troops probably still would have taken them out just because of the sheer number.
Well, the shock rifle, you only get 12 guys, 13 guys per platoon, so it's not as big as the
Okay.
Strakovi mobs. But yeah, but you're right though. It would have knocked them down to like 6 or 7 guys, maybe, maybe even less than that. I mean, it just depends. Yeah, taking out any tanks without the sappers in there, it's a real pain in the butt.
And Panzer IVs, they pretty much, I had to kind of improvise there for a minute because the idea was to just have everybody rush in. But once I realized it was crumbling over here,
Yeah, you had to kind of swing them around.
I had
Yeah,
to swing around, and it looked like they were. I mean, granted, I lost 3 in that
in
combat.
that combat, the shooting wasn't too kind to you either. Like
No,
you had like it was like 1 or 2 chances you had to hit side armor on those ISU 152s, and that just didn't really pan out. But I think you did make the right call moving those guys across the table. It really came down to either you coming over here and seeing if you could defend that flank over there, and then once that was dealt with, you could have swung the remainder back over here and made a play on this objective like later in the game.
yeah,
But is either do that like what you were planning on doing, or when those Panzer IVs came on, just support those Stogs and then just send all those tanks that were available into that platoon over there. But I don't think you would have been able to win that objective if you would have done that before I would have taken one of those objectives right there with what I had. Because I think I was in a little bit better shape as far as assaulting that, because you only had that one rifle platoon sitting down there. But that's kind of what we were thinking for the end game. How things played out was actually a really good game all the way up to the end. I think getting the Pac 40s out earlier made a pretty huge difference. But like I said, this whole game was back and forth, and not in a bad way. Like it really could have went either way based on some of these combats and shooting. So thanks for watching. Like or subscribe, all that jazz. You guys know the routine. I'll be back again next week with another battle report, and I think we're going to try to get some Hail Caesar in here in the next week or two. So if you guys are interested in watching some Ancients as well, keep an eye out for that. So thanks for watching.